And we should be live. Awesome. Guys, we're back with another episode of the Personal Collection. If you guys missed out yesterday, I was in Off Centered with Dustin, and today he's going to be showing off his PC. Now, he collects quite a few different types of cards, which is cool to see. Anything from Stranger Things to Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and even some vintage football. So, that being said, here is Dustin. How's it going?
Hey, Ryan. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for jumping on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Have I ever been on your show before? I don't think I have yet.
No, so I did this series about a year and a half ago. Did I don't know, like 15 or 20 episodes, and then moved out of my house and to my girlfriend's parents' house until my current house I'm at was done under construction. And once this came back, I'm like, all right, time to bring these back, but do it live this time. So
yeah, it's a little awkward when you're in like your in-laws' house. I know you're not married, you said girlfriend, but it's kind of like that, to where you're like, hey, I'm going to go make videos and, by myself, leave me alone.
Well, it wasn't even that case. It was just the Wi-Fi would always drop off over there. So I didn't want to do recordings and be like, all right, I'll be back in like 5-10 minutes when it gets back. And then no promises it comes back, or do the live stream element. And then, all right, guys, well, I guess Ryan's gone. So that's always a little complication. But as soon as I moved in here, I'm like, perfect. I have full opportunity to take advantage of the live streams.
Well, I don't want to jinx us. My internet is usually fine, but sometimes it does go down. But I'll tell you that normally I just come right back. So if I go off for a second or I freeze, I'll be back. Promise.
Sounds good. And we got Orlando here today. Hello, everyone. He was here yesterday as well, too. Yep. I believe in the stream, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I appreciate it, Orlando. So, yeah, do you want to talk a little bit how you got into Stranger Things cards? I've talked a little bit on the channel how collectors evolve over time. People start with modern cards and kind of work backwards into some vintage, and then eventually get into a little bit of non-sports. I mean, we've seen a lot in the hobby. A lot of modern basketball guys now they get into 90s PMGs. Then they start going backwards as well. And they might get like an Oscar Robertson or Bill Russell. But kind of tell us your journey on that side.
So the Stranger Things stuff, and I'll kind of tie it in with everything else, but it's almost like it came full circle with Stranger Things cards, because if I go back to 2016, really that summer of 2016, I kind of joked that it was my midlife crisis creeping up on me. But that show is based in the 80s, and it's just loads of 80s nostalgia. And that's when I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. And so that was a show that kind of kickstarted that, I guess, collectibles kick for me, where I started to look back at childhood stuff, whether it be Masters of the Universe action figures or starting lineups or sports cards or, non-sports or whatever. I was looking at all sorts of different things. So that show somewhat kickstarted it. And then, I didn't even realize that Stranger Things came out with cards. I didn't know they had cards in 2018. So I watched that show in 2016, and in 2018 is when I got back into the hobby. That's when I was buying graded comic books and graded sports cards and everything. And so now, of course, I would say over the last 8-9 months, maybe a little bit longer, 10 months, I've gone really heavy into Stranger Things cards as I've kind of researched it, discovered what it's all about. It's very simple compared to, I just saw like, Prism Football just came out, Select Football comes out, and there's like 5 different tiers of base. And then you've got all the parallels of that. And then you've got, all the stuff. Stranger Things is very straightforward. So, we can kind of, I don't know where you want to kind of start with it, but that's how I got into Stranger Things. Is it started kind of that nostalgia started with that show, Bring Me Back. And then over the last 9-10 months, I realized that there was cards, only about 5 sets of cards. And then you've got some promotional cards that came out, kind of like how you go after, obscure baseball cards, pre-war baseball cards. It's kind of similar to where there's weird promotional cards that just pop up out of nowhere at some like comic convention from 2016. So, that's been kind of a fun little deep dive. But yeah, so I'm kind of all over the place.
So I'm kind of interested on the comic side of things. Do a lot of the grading companies end up getting those slabbed, or are those kind of like promo materials they won't? Because I know at the National, was it last year that they had Zero Cool that had that huge display and handed out, I can't remember if it was like packs or single cards to people, but like when I was making the thumbnail in the video, I was surprised that like the value of some of those, like, geez, they go for a good coin.
Yeah. So the Comic-Cons, I think it was the 2017 Comic-Con is when they were rolling out and kind of introducing the cards. I've got a few of the promo cards that they handed out during that convention. And then that was kind of the preview for the 2018 Series 1 set. So even though Series 1 came out in 2016, the first cards for Series 1, Season 1 came out in 2018.
Let's take a look at some of those. And was that also about the same time when Leaf had some of the different character autographs too? Because I know they had some like one-offs too.
I don't know when Leaf did their, yeah, and those I'll tell you. So I don't have any of those, and nothing against Brian Gray and his Leaf products, but it's more so because those are just mainly actor autos. They're not tied to, you know, Stranger Things. They're not tied to the actual show. It's just all the actors from the show, sticker autographs, you know, that are kind of like put on the cards. Nothing wrong with those, of course, but they're not licensed, you know, the same way that the top stuff is. So let me see. Yeah, I don't have, you know what? I grabbed a bunch of season 2 stuff because really the best stuff I've got is season 2. Let's see if I've got any season 1.
You know, man, you should definitely watch Stranger Things. Like, I don't really watch much TV, but I make sure to watch Stranger Things when they get released. I think I learned about it in like season 2 or season 3, and I binged all those episodes. And then when season 4 came out, watched the full thing. But
yeah, well, and there was a big break during the pandemic. You know, the pandemic was when that season, was it 3 or 4? I think it was 4, got delayed a long time. Like season 4 was supposed to come out in like 2020, you know, 2021 or whatever. It was like a year and a half later because they had to stop shooting it.
And the 2 parts of it. But I was impressed. There are like 2 movies for episodes. I was like 8 and 9, something like that. They didn't do the traditional 10, but it was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, so I've got a few copies of the promo card, and this is from the 2017 New York Comic-Con. And on the back, it says, you have received a 2018 Topps New York Comic-Con exclusive card. And one thing that I found recently, and again, this is stuff that this is kind of the fun of it. I found a 2018 or 19 Comic-Con autographed version, and I didn't know those even existed. And it was, and it says actually on the card, you know, it's Topps and everything, but it says, you know, this is it's an autograph card. So it wasn't like it was, you know, an in-person signature or anything like that. It was a Matthew Modine, the guy that plays Papa. It was his. So I snagged that one too. So it's just kind of these random things that, you know, that pop up. The directors, this is kind of a cool thing that they do. So they have single autos from the Duffer Brothers. You've got Matt and Ross, and this is a dual. I mean, the dual autos and the triple autos are extremely rare. I mean, they're like 1 out of 5,000 packs for a duel.
Jeez.
And then I've got
under to 10 or something like that. I remember you posting it.
Yeah, so this when people laugh at this one. This is the mom's card. So this is a triple auto, and this is literally like 1 out of 11,000 packs. I've got 2 of these, so they're numbered to 10. There's 1 on eBay, and then I've got 2 of them. So
and you got the dual 10 grade on that too, which is pretty nice.
I'm cornering the market on the triple mom autos. That doesn't sound right, does it?
No, it does not.
All right, so this is one of the directors again. They're twins, so it's Ross Duffer. This is season 2. And it's the blue. This is another thing that's kind of nice. It's really basic. So the blue autos are out of 10, purple's out of 25, green's out of 50, and orange is out of 99. But they didn't have orange for a lot of the characters in season 1. So it's not like you're chasing a rainbow of 20 colors. You know, it's
there's no 1 of 1s then?
There is a 1 of 1 too. Yeah, there's a gold 1 of 1. Yes. Cool. And what's kind of fun too is there's 2 other guys that I know that are actually 3 guys I know that are mega collectors. There's a guy that's got like he's got binders of these, and they're in binders, and he's like, yeah, I paid about $10,000 for this binder. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know, like, and then there's a couple other guys that collect it. So we kind of battle when they pop up on eBay on auction, which they don't typically. When you see kind of like the dual autos and stuff, if it goes to auction, it's usually me, and then Aaron at Slab Stocks. He's another guy that collects them, and then there's another guy, Dave, that we talked to that also collects them. So
is it kind of like where my music card side of things, where it's a lot of deals that are like off eBay and just personal, like, hey, I have this card. Do you want it, or you have interest in it? Yeah, I'll buy that card. Because you guys kind of like share information, because we were talking about like earlier with Comic-Con cards, how you didn't even know those existed. I feel like a lot of this stuff isn't really documented that well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that what's interesting is I've never had people reach out to me. Well, I shouldn't say that. You actually reach out to me for Drew Brees cards. So like you'll say, hey, I found this cool Brees card. People do reach out to me for Brees and Stranger Things. It's like that's what I'm known for. People will say, and actually someone pointed out I had there was an autograph out of 50 that's not very easy to, you just don't see it. And it was on Twitter. A guy had posted it that I don't follow, and someone tagged me in it on Twitter, and I ended up making a deal and bought the card. So yeah, it is kind of an obscure thing. The other thing too is all of my kids watch it except for my 10-year-old son, or my 8-year-old son. Obviously, he's too young for it. But so I've got kind of my wife is not into scary stuff. So my wife and my youngest don't watch it, but me and my 3 kids, we get into it. We're actually rewatching seasons to try to figure out what's going to happen in season 5. So that's also part of the fun. Like they also think it's cool. They're like, oh my God, Dad, like, how did you get that? Like they actually think it's kind of cool. Whereas like with the Drew Brees card, they're like, oh, that's awesome. Dad got another Drew Brees card. Who cares?
Yeah. That is the cool part about non-sports. I will say my girlfriend hates horror, but she still watches Stranger Things with me when the seasons come out. So there's always a positive there. Philly Joe said, my girls and wife love Stranger Things. Can't get them into cards though. I'm trying. Maybe we'll have them watch this interview a little bit later so they can see the Stranger Thing cards. And then Pepino,
so the Millie Bobby Brown auto cards, they're all stickers in every single set. They're all stickers, except she does have, if you go on like eBay, she has like they're BGS certified, they're in person, they're on card, and they actually look really good, and they're fairly inexpensive. I got one for each of my daughters, and it was about $100 for each of them, but it's a nice signature. It's in like a silver pen, and it's on card. So, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, that stuff is out there.
And then Pepino Man said, bought a Stranger Things relic about 3 years ago, but I bought it for Eric. Those back pages, he collects them. He's also on Twitter.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that those back pages collects them too. That's cool.
Yeah. You have a small little community that'll grow over time, especially when season 5 comes out and if Zero Cold is a lot more promotions on that side of things. So I'm really hoping, at least from like Fanatics, like,
yeah,
I was super excited when they have their non-sports arm for the tops, and I really hope they do a lot more releases.
Well, it's kind of like, so I heard from the Tops conference, they're going to have so they had those like Billy Butcher blaster boxes that came out, and you have like, these are the parallels of the promo cards that they were handing out at the National.
So that's what they put in there, the parallels.
Yeah, so the main kind of chase cards are the auto cards that the artist did, which I'm not really that interested because I don't really know the artist, so I'm not as interested in those. But then you've got blues out of 11. Hold on, I think I might have moved it, but I've got a blue Murray. It's numbered out of 11. This is a green Will, kind of tough to see. Oh, because it's got Nancy on the back. Okay. So yeah, so there's green, there's orange out of 199, and then I've been buying the gold ones. I like the yellow gold ones, and they're out of 99. And they're honestly, compared to sports card prices, they're pretty reasonable. So it's kind of a fun little side project. So they release those. Then they've got a paper set that's coming out in the summer, and then they've got like an exquisite, and it's not really exquisite, but they've got kind of their premium like auto relic set that's coming out in November. So I'm trying to figure out like,
I didn't know they had that. That's actually pretty cool to see.
And I heard Josh Luber talking about it, and he was like, hey, look, it's like basically this deal is not like a short-term deal. Like I think this is like a multi-year deal with Stranger Things. So you'll have kind of the season 4 stuff, which will come out this year. Then there'll be season 5 stuff, so you've got, but think season 5 is in like a year and a half.
Yeah, it'll be 2025, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like a year and a half before we even see season 5. And then they've also said there's going to be spin-offs and different things. So it's not going to be the end. I kind of hope that it's like a Star Wars universe thing, where it's like this.
That's where I see it going for sure.
They made look, it's their most successful franchise that Netflix has ever created. It's the most successful original series in their 20-year history as a company. So I don't think they're just going to let it die.
Definitely not. And they've had a few other successful series recently too. What was the one like based off the Addams Family? I didn't watch it, but
yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, that's cool. Like that. Yeah. Yeah,
the one I watched too is every once in a while I'll watch You episodes. I thought that was a pretty good show.
Oh, You, yeah. And then Last of Us is on HBO, I think. I think it's on HBO Max. I'm thinking of a different one. But yeah, no, there's some good stuff coming out.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see more sets on that side of things. So not to all talk about Stranger Things, but let's see some of your like vintage football cards, because I know it's what most people here probably want to see.
I know everyone fell asleep there in the chat, so apologies there, but I had to get that off my chest. So this is my big get here recently. This is the Bart Starr rookie. It's a SGC 4, and it's one I've been trying to get this card since. I mean, I've been looking at it for years, but really since the last national. I was bent on buying this card at the last national, and it just didn't. There wasn't like the one, because I'm only going to have one copy. So I didn't, it's like I'm going to be kind of picky on the one I want. And I really prioritize centering and surface. So a lot of times you'll see like decent centering, but there's like, well, you're a vintage person.
Fish eyes and everything.
There's fish eyes. There's marks. It looks like a pen mark. There's there, or it's just like the coloring's not great. You've got this beautiful like orange and light blue, baby blue. And a lot of times like, oh, it's perfect. Like the orange looks great, but the blue looks kind of crappy, or vice versa. So I was just picky on this one. There was a guy that had another one that was a 4.5. And this was like 6-7 months back. And he was like, hey, are you interested in this? And the price was great. And I reached out to him a day too late, and he had already sold it. He came back to me again with this one, and it just looked really good. And he actually said, he's like, honestly, I thought it would get higher than a 4. I thought it was going to get like a 6 or something. And so, he wanted to help me get it. So it worked out really good. So that's really I would say that's my favorite car of the year that I've picked up on the vintage side. Let me
definitely can't go wrong with that. Pepino Man and also Orlando both like that. And then Collector's Dream also asked, what type of relics are they going to put in the Stranger Things like exquisite cards?
So the thing that's kind of interesting, I don't know. Well, first off, that new set that's coming out in November, I don't know what they haven't really announced much on it. But hold on one second.
Sure thing.
So one thing that's kind of like this is like a typical relic card. Okay, so this is a dual,
kind of like napkins in a sense, like with the sports one color.
Well, some of them are multicolored, but the thing that's interesting is it is like the color of their shirt, like like it always matches whatever that. But it says the memorabilia contained in this card was used in the filming of Netflix Stranger season 2, so it's not necessarily game worn. Like I don't know, so I don't know how you take that. It might be, it might not be. But yeah, they haven't really elaborated on that front yet.
That'd be interesting to see. Oh, the Jim Brown.
Yeah, the Jim Brown. This is one I got right when I got back into the hobby, like early 2018. This was one of those cards that was like way out of the price range when I was a kid, obviously. And I just I didn't know anything about what I was looking at. I didn't even know that PSA was really, I didn't even really, when I came back in, I was like, you know what? I have to buy a Beckett. I have to buy Beckett grading, BGS or BVG. I don't know what the hell PSA is, but the price seems fine. So I literally bought this like blind. I'm glad that I did, obviously. But yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite cards.
That's not a bad buy for just a blind buy, right? I will say it's kind of funny. I have a BVG 5 with a Jim Brown rookie card, and I got it in that. It's like really, really funny way. Like just kept trading up to that one. Started with a Carmen Electra refractor card, which I traded that and a few other cards to get into a Bob Gibson rookie. And then I traded the Bob Gibson rookie, a 54 Ted Williams, 48 Jack Johnson, and like 800 cash to get that. And it's in my PC. I know there's a lot of Jim Browns out there, but I at least want to have like a decent looking copy. It's pretty centered.
Yeah, you don't realize how many there are until you go to like the National. You go to the National, you're like, man, there's a lot of these. But he's only got one rookie. It's better than, rookies nowadays. They've got 1,000 different cards. So
that is true. And then Paul also said there's no reason to give a discount on a 57 star too close to Wisconsin and then too iconic in vintage football for the National or Chicago. I think you were looking for it in Chicago the first time I met you, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been looking for it for a while, and it's just been, obviously they're always in demand and expensive. There's never been a discount on them. And so, yeah, it was just finding, what's weird though, something I noticed is I feel like there's been more that have popped up over the last like 6 to 9 months. Whereas if I go back a year and a half when I was looking and going back to Chicago National, I feel like at the National they were there, but like looking on eBay for them, like they were just not on eBay. I couldn't find them. Now I'm starting to see more. That's actually a card, where I could have multiples of it. The Bart Starr rookie. I just love that card. And it's like, if I was going to treat it like a store of value, like gold, or something, I wouldn't mind having 5 Bart Starr rookies, or whatever. Like that's just one of the great cards.
So when I went to a bigger card show in Wisconsin, they don't have it anymore, but it's the Wisdell's card show. There's a dealer there that has like incredible vintage cards. And at trade night, he just throws out on his table. He had like 2 or 3 7s and an 8 and everything like that. And like, this is one of your high-end dealers that has a bunch of Gaudi roots and everything like that. But when you see all those high grades there, you're like, that is crazy that people accumulate that type of stuff and just bring it to trade night. Those were dupes, by the way, for him.
Wow. Yeah, we were talking to a vintage dealer, and this is probably not news to you, where actually Steve bought that 51 Bowman Mays rookie. And he was like, a lot of times, like for him, it's just you make the connections. These cards are sitting in collections for a long time, and then eventually they come out. They circulate for whatever reason. There's a lot of stuff that's just hidden back, somewhere that you just doesn't see the light of day until it's time to sell for an estate or whatever,
That'll happen with your Stranger Thing cards too, like especially early Comic-Con stuff. Like someone will have that in their collection and just pop it up. You're like, I didn't know that person had an autograph.
Yeah, I hope that would be cool. The one thing I go, and I know your audience does not want to hear about Stranger Things, but the last thing I'll say on it is just, I like the limited number of sets. Like when you talk about like Marvel cards go back to like the 60s. There's a zillion sets. There's a zillion options. With this, there's literally like 5 sets, so there's a very limited number of actual cards. And then when you get into the rare stuff, it's very limited. But anyway, I won't bore you. I won't talk about it anymore. Walter Payton in a 6. I'd love to kind of upgrade this into like I'd love to have an 8, really, like a nice 8, but the 6 is fine too. 6 has been kind of I would say kind of my sweet spot, just from a price point standpoint.
They start getting super expensive. Like once you get that 7 to 8 spot.
This was, this was a card that I've been looking for a long time too. And it's very well centered. That was the thing with these.
That's so tough with 57s. Like I've bought a big stack of 57s before, and there's so many that are miscut.
Well, this one's 61 Fleer. It's the.
Oh, sorry, I flipped the years.
Sorry. Yeah. You're right though. I've looked at a million of these, and they're so off center. So I know it's a 5. I don't care about rounded corners. If it's centered and the picture looks pretty good, the coloring looks pretty good, then I got this one. Let's see. I really want the Wilt, but it's just expensive.
Are you gonna get both poses of West, or just gonna have the action shot?
What's funny is I like the action shot better than the portrait. And I like it because it says like Jerry West snags a rebound, or it's like, what is Wilt Chamberlain like dunks a ball, or is something like, it's something
like that. I'm not a basketball expert by any means. I know enough to get by with vintage.
I don't know, like just the way it says like snags a rebound or like, slam dunks, like stuff that people don't say anymore. I like that, but not to say I'd never get the portraits. It's just they're getting expensive.
They definitely
This is the Unitas 6, and I've got a Unitas 4 as well. I love 57 Topps football. That's probably, if I was going to name off like my favorite vintage football set.
It's stacked with rookies though. Also, do you have some of the other bigger names in there too? I think it's.
Oh, in the 57 Topps?
Yeah, 57.
No, I only have the Unitas and the Star at this point. But that's a set where it'd be cool to like get commons of, because they're just they're just beautiful cards.
And you don't see those commons as much at shows, like with all the vintage dealers. You have binders of baseball cards, but occasionally they also have football cards out there, just not as prevalent. And we got a few comments too. I got to get through these before I forget.
Go ahead.
The legendary John Mangini in here.
Yeah, what's going on, Mangini?
Then great stream, and then Orlando loves the Jim Brown rookie. Lee Zepp says, "Hey guys, big fans of both of you guys. Good stuff. I appreciate it, man."
Yeah, thank you.
Says, hit the like, y'all. And then Brendan says, "Stranger Things screen used guitar strings." I'm a big music fan. I really wish Zero Cool, if they ever made like a music, like a rock and metal set, would have used strings. They aren't even that expensive actually if you buy them from guitarists, but there's so many cool things they could do.
A couple of interesting ones. So these are presidential cards. 25th John Player, Leaders of Men, George Washington. And then here's a Heroes of History. I think this one is like 1910 maybe. These kind of, I'm sure you've probably seen these.
I think that, is it a Mecca, if I remember correctly?
It's Heroes of History, series free with Royal Bengals, Little Cigars. They're definitely they're cigar cards. I can't think. I think this one's like 1910 or 1912, and this one's 1925. I like these though because, like there's a little there's a little write up on the back. First in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. Talks about George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the savior of our country. Kind of a little write up. So it's kind of like a history lesson on the back of the card. I just think those are pretty cool.
You know what set you might like if you're familiar with them? Have you heard of the 1932 Caramel Presidents?
I'm sure I've probably seen them online because I've been looking for those cards, those presidential cards. I just think they're really cool.
So 32 Caramel, most people know about the baseball set, but the baseball set also featured some golfers and also boxers. But there's a whole nother release with all the presidents all the way up through 1932. Now, the most common ones you're going to find are red backs, or not technically red backs, but like the background is all red. But
Yeah.
you also have variations that are orange, which are a little bit more rare. But then you have the blue ones, which are pretty rare. So, I think that's a set you should look into because it's kind of cool, like with the baseball crossover on it.
Not a vintage card, but this was another one of like the cards I've been wanting since I was a kid. This is like the card that was in the case when I was 8, and it was like $500 in 1989. And it wasn't graded. Like the raw copies, obviously.
Always a classic on that. Chat's super active today too.
Sweet.
Jason's looking for a Walter and an SGC5, and then Mangini says he's more of an inaction guy too. That's the one you were talking about last night, right?
Remember I said like the 6.5, or wait, is this a 6? Oh, it's just a 6. I thought I had a 6.5. Yeah, this is the one, but actually the edges are not too bad. It's actually centered pretty decently. It's very hard to tell just because I don't have good lighting, but the centering is actually pretty good on this one, and the edges aren't bad. But yeah, once you go up to a set, like the 7s, I think I got this for $500. The 7s were like $1,200, and then the 8s were
probably like 3-4, right?
Like, all right, okay. I mean, I like Fran Tarkenton, but I don't need a 7 or an 8 necessarily.
And that's one of those cards that you'll never see a 10 of, or if there is a 10, no one's selling that because it's probably upper 5, close to 6 figures, especially those black borders.
Exactly.
He said Will Dunk's a 2-pointer, got the card from Orlando.
Yeah. Will Dunk's a 2-pointer, yeah.
And Horning and then also Dick Nitrain Lane are the two other 57s. So I've had a few Nitrain Lanes. I haven't had a Horning in inventory before. And then United 6 is sweet. On 8s, the COVID era has inflated 8s beyond recognition. I'd hold off and wait to see if they come back down to earth. That's a tough part because there's so little 8s out there. A lot of people are going to hoard onto them for a while.
Yeah.
Big show in Chicago this weekend. Wish I could make that one. Orlando says 1910 on your larger card. Watching legit 2Gs. And then,
yeah. So I'll switch it up a little bit. Another one of my all-time favorite dudes, Bo Jackson, going back to the late 80s, Tecmo Bowl. This was one that I got last year, or was it a year and a half ago? But I wanted to get an exquisite auto, just a nice on-card auto for him, and pick that one up. Actually, before the prices went silly, and now the people are asking crazy money for that stuff.
Well, any of his autos are always expensive at shows. I can imagine when exquisite.
Now, exquisite, everyone looks at exquisite like it's like
old school flawless and everything like that. Yeah, it's crazy though, because even back in the day, I remember watching breaks for National Treasure or looking at those boxes, and back then it was $500, $600 for a box. Now today that gets you, I wouldn't call them junk product, but junk product range, and where $500 used to get you top of the line stuff.
Again, not a vintage card, but this is an example of a card as a kid. This was literally $60, $70, $80 raw in the card store. And now a PSA 10 is about $80. It's funny how that is. But Thurman Thomas was such a beast, back in the day, before your time, Ryan, before your time. But this was the original scat, well, not the original. Mangini will kill me for that. Gale Sayers is the original scat back. But, Marshall Falk, the guy before Marshall Falk was Thurman Thomas, before Alvin Kamara.
Mangini, he did ask you a question, though. Do you have any Lynn Swan rookies?
I don't. It is one on the list, though. I would really love to have one. Yeah, it's just one of those that I haven't gotten to yet, but I love the card too. What is he? He's in the same, is his rookie card the same as Joe Theismann's 71 or 72? Is it the same set as Joe Theismann's rookie?
And then
I know it's 70s.
Jason goes, Dustin, do you have any interest in vintage baseball? Sorry if you already answered it. You didn't answer it yet.
I do have interest in it. You know what though? I feel like I'm just a little bit too late. Like I'm more of a football card collector, so I focused more on 75 as the Swan. Okay. Yeah. I've got a Theismann rookie, but I don't have a Swan. So when I first got back in, like if you go back to 18, I could have bought vintage baseball at a reasonable price. I went after football and some other things instead. And now I feel like it's just too late right now. And I know some people might say like, well, it's just going to continue to go up. But even just like low grade vintage baseball is so much more than it was going back a few years. So I'm kind of just hoping that it cools off at some point and I can get into it because I really enjoy the history. I'm not a baseball guy. I didn't play it growing up or anything. I'm more football, basketball, but I do want some nice baseball. And I've had people that have reached out, trying to trade me for Jackie Robinsons and different things. So I know I'll get there eventually, but the price points have just been out. Yeah, I've just been prioritizing other things, I guess, over that right now because I feel like it's just been moving up for a while.
They have gone pretty pricey, especially for that lower mid-grade stuff. I mean, the high stuff has exploded in value, but you look at the price of some 4s and 5s and 6s of even like third or fourth year cards of players, they still go for quite a bit.
Well, I think a lot of like the initial reaction, I feel like from people getting back into the hobby and then getting into maybe like modern, ultra modern is when they were like, oh crap, I don't want to be in this. Then they moved over to vintage baseball. I feel like they went into like low grade baseball.
It'll be interesting when those people eventually move into pre-war because it'll happen within 3 years or so. People will get bored of 50s to 70s and then they'll go backwards and then give it 5 to 10 years and people will discover old judge cards and interiors and everything like that. But that's assuming that those people are still there and they want to do the research on it. But I think it'll eventually happen.
You know what? I'm doing a little bit of so I don't really, well, I guess I can talk about it because there's enough of it out there, but when it comes to so here's an example of a baseball card I just bought. So, and now again, I'm following a little bit of the trendy thing here, but hear me out for a second.
The Tiffany, or is it auto?
It's just a regular 87 tops traded Maddox rookie, but it's a 10 and then it's got the 10 auto grade. But the reason why I'm focused around these types of cards for kind of those junk wax era superstars. So I like Greg Maddox is a legend. Randy Johnson would be another guy. I think I showed you or I told you about it, but I've been buying Barry Bonds like early 2000 Fleer game used bat auto stuff, because I think that over time, well, first off, I watch Bonds play, like Bonds, Sosa, home run, derby that they did, going after the record. However you feel about PEDs, that was one of the more exciting couple of years in baseball. And I remember it. So there's kind of a nostalgic element for that. I'm not chasing Sammy Sosa stuff, but Barry Bonds just being, I don't know, like I know he was on PEDs, but I just feel like he is like the best hitter of all time outside of some of these other, like these old timers, like Willie Mays and stuff. I mean, best hitter in the last 30 years, so I'm kind of focused around, some of those guys I like to watch, like Mark McGwire would be another guy that I think would be cool to get. So it's just kind of, I'm focused more on kind of like the junk wax era legends. You know
what you should look into, and I still need to pick up some of these myself, but there's Tiffany cards. So those are like limited anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 depending on the year. And they made some for Bowman and also Tops, and they go for a premium. Well, my regrets a few years ago at the National, I had a LeBron rookie to trade or sell and lost out on a deal for a Tiffany Barry Bonds rookie. Now I sold the LeBron and bought probably some other vintage cards, and those have done well. But the Tiffany Barry Bonds rookie has gone up so much the last 2 or 3 years too. So
that's the thing. That's why
what I still want to grab.
So I like the autographs with inscriptions, on a rookie card. And I know that's kind of a trendy thing right now. So I'm kind of following a trend, but there's not necessarily people buying a lot of those for Randy Johnson, for example. They're going after, other guys. They're chasing after other guys that are more expensive. So I'm looking at kind of more of like the baseball and pitchers too. Like Randy Johnson, Greg Maddox, those aren't, they're not power hitters.
They're
it's not
top
like
10 pitchers all day long though.
What's that?
They're top 10 pitchers all day long though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I just love Greg Maddox in particular because he looks just like the average guy that lives in your neighborhood and just dominates you, and he has an attitude, like I love Greg Maddox.
Oh, and also his Chicks Dig the Long Ball commercial too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's always a good one. Let me go through a few comments real quick and we'll see some more cards too. So
yeah.
Mangini love Cliff Branch, Swan Instant Replay, and it's almost free in a PSA 9. This is an interesting one. What's your most embarrassing side PC?
Oh, well, Stranger Things. I mean, I feel like that's such like a niche thing. Like I get all excited about it and people are like, really? Well, what else do you have? I think Stranger Things would probably be it's just so niche. Like there's not very many collectors of it. It's growing, it's definitely growing, but that's, I mean,
it's a whole different fan base. Like they have to get into cards.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Masters of the, if we're talking about just nerding, like what's embarrassing nerd wise, I've got Masters of the Universe in box action figures. I've got graded starting lineups. I've got graded video games. I've got graded comic books, like it's basically all the 80s stuff. It's here.
Then we got, when do you think junk wax era started? I think 1974, Dustin. It's never too late to get in vintage baseball. Peer pressure, pal. You can do it. And then
I'm with you. I hear you.
And do you have a tunnel rookie? And then a few others over here. I thought we're not using the term junk wax.
I know. I should have said, what did we all coined it something different. Memories. It was like the best memories, best memories era. I can't remember. Yeah, I think what Mangini put boom era or Brendan boom era. Yeah, I mean that's fair.
And then what is?
I guess my point is just the stuff that's printed, the heavily printed era. But the thing is there's a lot of great players from that era. So.
And there's some pretty rare cards in that era. I wouldn't say fully rare, but there's a lot of scarcity on that side of things. Start looking for it. Then we got Ray from Philly. What's up, man?
What's up?
Nice classics in the collection. Then we got over here, Sweet Maddox. Totally agree on Barry Bonds. Yeah, Barry Bonds doesn't sign a lot of autographs as well and doesn't really have a ton. What I found out, or I knew it for a little bit, is that he was kind of like when Topps has the license, they have all the different players throughout the MLB PA that are part of it. But early Barry Bonds stuff in the 2000s, he represented himself. So people had to get 2 licenses. They had to get the MLB PA license, then to get a Barry Bonds specific license. What I did found out is there was like a 2004, 2005 baseball video game, and they couldn't sign Barry Bonds, so they just had a random player act like Barry Bonds for the Giants. It's kind of interesting on that side of things.
Wow, that is cool. So going back to those Fleer, kind of the early Fleer, this is a Maze auto, obviously. The Sweet Sigs, I like the early 2000, the Sweet Sigs, the leather, like it's always like signed on a piece of glove or bat or ball or whatever. I eat that stuff up.
The ball ones though, I'm always worried about because those fade so easy. I've seen so many at shows that dealers leave out for a while, and then you look at them, the autograph's almost completely gone. I think a lot of them were also signed in Sharpie, which is kind of a no-go for baseballs.
It's funny that you say that because there is a set where it actually looks like a baseball on the card, and the autos always look crappy.
That's what it is. I think it's 2005 or 2006 around there. There's a lot of Hall of Famers. There's
a Bonds one I almost bought on eBay, and I'm just like staring at it. I'm like, it's still cool. I mean, it's still a game, it's game used and all that, but it's just that auto looks pretty rough.
Yeah, I stay away from that. Like they're really cool cards, but they're just gonna fade over time, and then you're just gonna have the card with the number. I mean, eventually people are just going to think that they had the baseballs inserted there, and that was kind of like the short print.
So this is a ultra modern card of a legend, though. So it's the NASCAR GOAT, Richard Petty. And I know Richard Petty signed a lot of stuff, but his autograph is fantastic. And this one's numbered out of 10. It's a gold Prism Titan, and then it's the 10 of 10. Just a cool card.
Definitely is. And junk wax era cards make me think of Don West and Ken Golden. I think Don West also passed away too. I could be wrong.
I'm not a big fan of a lot of the Prism inserts, but the stained glass, and this one's from 17, where Mahomes obviously was a rookie. So I really like a lot of the stained glass stuff. But this one is obviously the GOAT.
I know it's a different brand entirely, but I like the Ginter ones that they put in the rip cards. Like in person, it looks so nice.
I don't know if I've seen that. I don't know if I've seen
I
those.
think they're numbered to, like, they're not actually stamped, but they're either out of 25 or 50. But again, you put in the light, they look so cool.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
That could be an option right there to get you. It's not vintage baseball by any means, but to get you at least started in the baseball side of things. Pick up a stained glass. They probably have a Maddox or Randy Johnson.
Oh, you know what I picked up too is I could go. Actually, let me just grab it. It's right here. Hold on.
Sounds good. And we got a few more comments to go through. Jason was blocks away from Sammy Sosa in Wrigley Field in '98. That must have been insane. An '89 Pro Set Sanders. Let's check on 19 Topps Tiffany football. Yeah, so there's Tiffany sets also of hockey too. There's one Bowman. So they had hockey, football, and also baseball, which most people know about that side of things. And you also had Flair glossy cards too, but they just aren't as popular. Love '89 Pro Set. Roger Clemens as well. Yeah, Roger Clemens, 1984. I do have his Tiffany in an 8, I think. I need to upgrade it over time, but in my opinion, like 8s, 9s, 10s, like around that era, pretty similar in shape. So
here's another Maddox auto. I just like the on-card auto, and then it's got kind of that blue border with with the Cubs uni. But this is the one I wanted to show actually, though, just to show that hey, I'm paying attention to the vintage guys. Ernie Banks, Upper Deck Legends. It's the on card with the game use ball. Yeah. And these are, I mean, Legendary Lumber. I think it's what is it, 2002
or 3?
Yeah, it's early 2000 stuff. I think it was $80 or something, 70 or $80, which I don't know if that's an amazing deal or not, but I just think about like that's a legendary baseball player. It's game used stuff. It's an on card auto, and it's $70. I'll take it.
It is, and a classic rookie year. So his rookie's in 1954, which competes also with Al Kaline and of course Hank Aaron. Think about that. 3 big names. And
I'm not totally void of the. I just have a lot of. I'm just all over the place, as you can see.
But there's nothing wrong with that though, because like having multiple PCs, you really become informed on side of things. Like I don't really collect the modern except for some patches and autograph cards, and I have a few other like side baseball PCs like modern wise, but like I don't get exposed to all that. So going to a show, I just don't have that knowledge. But see, since you collect a lot of modern football or also collect some vintage football, Stranger Things, like we see that type of stuff in shows, where there's deals.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get to know the sets and you really kind of dive in. Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Triple V said there are plenty of deals to be found in vintage baseball pre-war and up. Just got to dig, find obscure issues, save searches. Yeah, 100%. Mangini agrees with that one over there. A lot of people were saying Clemens. I didn't know if you heard me or not talking about.
I was trying to. That's exactly. Roger Clemens is another guy. Specifically, I'm looking for Yankees stuff because he won his World Series with the Yankees. He has 2, right? Does he have 1 or 2 World Series titles with the Yankees?
I can't remember. He won like 7 Cy Young awards, which
I mean, prolific. Like, I mean, he might be the best pitcher of all time, but PEDs. I'll take all the Clemens stuff.
I wouldn't say best pitcher, but definitely top 5.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, not best pitcher. Top 5.
Mangini will 100% say Walter Johnson was better.
It's always safe to say top 5 because it's debatable. But Clemens has got he's got the hardware for sure.
And Canseco were in baseball for a while, throwing out his arm home run off the head. That's still a classic. I mean, outside of baseball, if you told someone that literally someone hit a home run off of a star player's head, people would think you're crazy. I remember when my dad told me that the first time, I'm like, there's no way. It showed me the clip. I'm like, that's hilarious. See, the boom era starts in 1976 for baseball. Very cool Mays card. Canseco. John Dodd. That's the baseball player in the game. John Dodd.
Oh, okay. I was like,
yeah. Floating Heads. Was it 2005? I think it was 05. And then you'll enjoy the World Baseball Classic. Yeah, that's on right now. I'll be honest, I've not watched a game.
I haven't watched any of it. I saw Griffey is the hitting coach or something, or is he just the head coach? He's a coach.
He's probably a coach. I don't think he's the head coach.
I think he's a hitting coach.
Some of the short prints in 2022 updates are cool legends like Musial and Campy. 2 great names also. I think we talked about those last night on your show. And then Ernie is undervalued, in my opinion, for vintage. Definitely a good player. I think K-Line's kind of undervalued for that trio, though, because K-Line is just as good as Banks. Maybe that's controversial, but I
do have so my my mother-in-law, her brother was huge into baseball cards as a kid. So I do have some Clemente, but it's later stuff. It's like 70 tops and 71 tops was what he was collecting as a kid. So I do have some of those laying around, and then I got a few of them graded up. So I've got some baseball. I don't know if that's, some people might not say I guess it's vintage.
It's still playing day Clemente.
Yeah. I mean, 70 tops.
73, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And
I just crush.
The family really loves Clemente for all of his, all the stuff he did for his home country and all the stuff he did in the community. So I think if I was going to target, if there was a certain player I'd look for, his stuff is expensive though. I mean, there's a lot of people that love collecting his stuff. So, I mean, but yeah, he's a guy that is, I would say, a favorite of the family.
Definitely one to get. And Lee Zepp says I picked up a 56 Clemente in it too. I like the 56 design better than the 55 if you're looking for Clemente. It's not technically a bargain, but compared to the rookie card price, and you get a very similar image.
I'm one of the weirdos that likes 55 Bowman, the TV wood cards.
I
love those. So maybe that's good for me because maybe they're a little bit less expensive because I feel like you either love them or you hate them.
I do not like the 55 Bowmans. I don't like the 62 tops, the 68 tops. Like those just don't do it for me.
Fair enough.
But everyone has their own opinions. Like some people love sets, some people hate them. That's the beauty of it, though. And you got to be honest with you guys. This stream is motivating me to start my own channel. Do it, man. Like, look, we've been both doing YouTube for what?
He sees how bad it is. He's like, if these two clowns can do it, then I certainly can do it. You can do it, Jason. You can, man.
Like it's a lot of. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of work to put out videos, edit, thumbnails, all this stuff. But like, it's a passion, man. Like it's fun to do. And then what's your favorite memory of seeing an athlete play? Mine was Pele with the Cosmos.
Favorite memory of an athlete playing live. I watched, so this was a big deal at the time, but I was in the Superdome when Reggie Bush was a rookie going back to 2006, just right after Katrina. We got Drew Brees, we got Reggie Bush in the draft. I was there when we played the Bucks, and I think we were at like week 6 or something, and he hadn't scored a touchdown. He did some good things, but then he took a punt to the house, and I was actually sitting kind of in the end zone where he like ran towards us, and that was a really cool moment. I also met Tiger Woods in the gym back in.
Really?
I met him about 6 months before his life fell apart. Yeah. Yeah, he was there because it was the beginning of his injury stuff too. This was July, August, September of 2009 is when he was there. There's a place called Cardio Club that was in Metro West in Orlando. He actually used to go to Gold's Gym too. He went out in public in Orlando, but it was like nobody went to the gym at lunch, and I would go at lunch. And I remember just like catching someone out of the corner of my eye, like, who the hell is here? And I look over and he was there doing like light weights. And I was like, oh my God. I went up and I like said, I'm a big fan and shook his hand. Cause I'm like, I might never get this chance again. I'm not going to ask him for an autograph or anything, but I just want to say like, I love you, I love you, and then shake his hand. And so he actually just, he like gave me a dap and said, thanks, bro. And that was it. That was my, that's the most famous person I've ever met up close. Like
that is really cool. My most famous person, unless you follow running, you probably don't know it, but I ran the end of a marathon with David Goggins. So I was running the last.
I don't know is he a marathon runner?
He's kind of like a motivational speaker and also an ultra marathoner that runs like 200 milers and stuff like that.
Oh, geez.
One of those guys that completely changed his life, military and all the type of stuff. But it was actually really cool. It was running a race like mile 20 or so. I thought I saw him run by me, and here's a quote, like someone says, "Who's going to carry the boats?" And he pointed at him and nodded his head. I'm like, there's no way he just passed me. I'm like, I got to run with him for the last few miles or so. And he was pacing his wife or girlfriend. Then he veered off the course. Like, no one will ever believe me. I ran a marathon with Goggins. He waited after the finish line. He was like, hey, I paced you those last few miles. It was right over there. We talked a few more minutes, took a picture. I'm like, thanks, man.
My body hurts just thinking about a mile. Like I need to get out and run just thinking about that. It's amazing.
Well, ultras are another level, man. Like 50 miles, 100 miles. Those are experiences.
Yeah. I think what's impressive too is the mental toughness, because it's so much repetition. It's and obviously I know physically it hurts, but mentally you have to keep yourself.
It is. It's both. It's as much as a physical challenge as mental, because like you want to quit, But then you tell yourself, like, I'm 30 or 40 miles into this 50-mile run. Like, it's not too bad. I have 10 more left. You got to think about it like that. Although even a 10-mile run sounds painful at times.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Crazy. You guys are nuts.
And then Jason says 53 Bowman Color. The Pee Wee Reese is a classic in that set, and 54 Topps is king. All right. Your opinion, the most overrated vintage card. So I know you're not huge into vintage, but what do you think?
The most overrated vintage card. Are we talking about as far as like the player or the price? You know, when you talk about overrated, like
I'd say kind of both.
Everyone's going to hate me for this. This is going to hurt. This is going to get me kicked off the stream. Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle.
No, I agree with you though. They're on there. Like the 52 Mantle price is ridiculous. Like, don't get me wrong, it's an iconic card in the hobby, but there's 2,000 plus of them out there, and it's not as much of a short print as people think. Like the Topps high number series in 52 are short printed, but it's rumored that card was double or triple printed. There's actually quite a few of them out there.
And I think too, just he's been put on a pedestal as this legendary Yankee, and obviously he is a legendary Yankee. I'm not going to pretend like I know baseball history. So, but when you look at the price points of him compared to like Willie Mays, and again, not a baseball expert, but I've heard a lot of people say Willie Mays was a better baseball player.
100%. So Mantle is on most lists, they'll say he's anywhere from like 8 to 20 ranked, but then Mays on every single list, they're going to put him in the top 3. But one thing that you'll learn when you get into vintage baseball is there's a Yankee bias in pricing, and people always pay more for Yankee legends.
Boo this man. I knew it was coming. Kick him off, Ryan. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I know you guys have deep bags of Mantle. I know you've got like stacks of this stuff. Hey, and look, again, like he obviously an amazing player and an icon, but I'm just talking about like we're putting him on a pedestal when there's other players that are just as good, if not better, that are just kind of over here somewhere, you know, as far as popularity goes for a variety of reasons. But chalk that up as like stuff that doesn't make sense in the hobby though. You know, I mean, like there's a lot of that stuff where it's like, you know,
even in modern prices, I mean, prospects going more sometimes in Juan Soto autographs or early Juan Soto cards. You're like, Juan Soto is the best young player in baseball. Why are some of these other prospects for 18 or 19 years old already going for more than that? Or if you do the comparison of these first Bowman Chrome autos are more expensive than a lower grade or even middle grade, like Hank Aaron rookie cards. Like the hobby, there's a lot of illogical things about the hobby, but like if you stay in your niche, you'll understand like at least your niche pricing. Like, okay, this is why this is more expensive than that, but all over the place.
Yeah, I think too, it's like if you're into certain things that have a collector base, like a diehard collector base, even if it's not very big, you know, even if it's, you know, you've got kind of like neat, like music cards, maybe there's not as many, you know, music card collectors as there are baseball, obviously. But if there's some really diehard collectors in that, then you have, you know, then you can work with that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be like, as Stranger Things grows, there's going to be prices. You're like, why is this character worth more than this character? Like this character is on screen a lot more, way more popular with the fan base, but all it takes is a few collectors that want to have that card in their collection.
I mean, what's funny is if you look back at like, okay, what's like vintage culture cards? If we're talking about Stranger Things, like a Grail card of mine, this is going to sound dumb to a lot of people probably watching this, is I don't know if you know these cards, but there's these Simpsons cards that are.
Oh, is it the autographed one from the 90s?
Yes.
The redemption one?
Yep. And it's, you know, they're art cards and they're signed by Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons. And they're beautiful. I mean, but it's original art, you know, so if you compare that to like in comic books, you know, original like Spider-Man art is extremely expensive, you know, so, but those cards in particular are insane. I mean, they're very limited. Actually, what's funny is a local card shop here it's like Twin Oaks, or I can't remember the name of it here in Raleigh area where I am. They've got 3 of them. And seriously? I'm like, what? At the Raleigh card show, they had 3. One was like $10,000. Another one was $25,000. I was like, my God, how did you guys get these? But there's, you know, so that's an example of like, you know, like a big time culture card. But, you know, the average person wouldn't really know anything about it unless you just kind of dive into it a little bit.
You know what I will say about those cards too is I've seen the rise of popularity of the actual redemption card, because most people would send those in for people to open up the box a little bit later. Actually, some pretty cool art on it too, but those have actually been getting quite expensive. People want to pair them.
Yeah. And I just think too, if you had kind of those, if you go back to like 90s cards, there's like Dick Tracy cards and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cards, but there wasn't any, pack pulled autos. There wasn't like, the actors. I'm just trying to think of like, Friends or Seinfeld. What if there was like a set of Seinfeld cards where they had like pack pulled, Jerry Seinfeld autographs? It'd be expensive now.
I think some of the first non-sports autographs like that were probably early at Topps Americana or some of those. It was either Topps Americana or Leaf Americana. Can't remember which. I think they both made non-sports cards where they had autographs of different celebrities that were either on card or sticker.
Yeah, Inkworks has, if you look at like early 2000s, so it's fairly new, but like Sopranos, or they have a Sopranos set of Inkworks, and they've got like kind of obscure like 2000s shows like Angel, and stuff like you might not be interested in those actor autos, but like who's the Sopranos guy? Is it James Gandolfini, the guy that
he has a few autographs in the early 2000s.
Yeah, Inkworks has, they're very expensive, but they're out there. So, I mean, there's a lot of like really, really niche, cool things out there for sure.
And then Ryan says, are you guys into any of the Barrett famous football sets? Also, I started a channel because of Dustin and got into cricket because of Ryan. If I can do it, anyone can. Thanks. That's awesome, Ryan. Hey, I was going to say too, next week we actually have cricket on. So Sal got a bunch of stuff back from PSA. So you're going to learn some stuff. I'm going to learn some stuff as well because he knows so much about it.
That's awesome. Cricket is the most popular sport in the world, by the way. So everyone always talks about soccer, but Google it. Actually, I'm just talking out of my butt. Hold on a second. Let me, I'm pretty sure it was cricket at one point.
I could believe it, but now soccer is way over past it.
I think it's just based on population too, because it's huge in India, and there's there's a zillion.
It's big in India, United Kingdom, and Australia.
Yeah, Australia. Yeah, it's concentrated.
Indian cards are quite scarce to get, and actually, interestingly enough, Topps produced Indian cards for cricket in the early 2010s. Very tough to find, and there's already collectors going back trying to find that stuff, and it's gone up a ton in price. So I hope Fanatics ends up doing more cricket cards. It'd be kind of cool to see. But
it's a thing. It's a thing. I've got to know. Hold on.
All right, I'll go through some more comments.
Go ahead.
Jude says Lenny Dykstra, 1987 Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta. I sat right behind him in left field. Rookie Aaron I think this was talked about overrated. I don't know Aaron is the home run king, or you could say Bonds is the home run king. It's a 1954 card. I think it's kind of fairly priced, maybe a little bit over, but there's way other people that are overrated.
So I don't know how accurate this is, but soccer, over 3.5 billion fans, which I'm not sure how you come up with that. And then cricket, over 2.5 billion fans. Hockey, over 2 billion fans. Tennis, over 1 billion fans. I don't know. Maybe this is like some random made this website. I have no idea.
It's interesting, but I know Topps is making tennis sets now. They're working on a Topps Chrome tennis set.
Cool.
He's Griffey of the era, 68 mantles, affordable. 55 rookie is a bit overrated when it comes to price in my mind.
I think what'll be interesting though is if vintage baseball goes all the way back, and now you're seeing kind of, okay, there's more culture card sets, there's more of kind of all these different things that are coming out, but will that stuff grow in popularity? Like basketball cards going back 30 years, like football and basketball cards, not to say there wasn't collectors, but like in 1988, it was mainly baseball card collectors, like when I was a kid. And then you had awesome draft classes with Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and, these guys, Deion Sanders, they all, started to build late 80s. But I mean, there was way more baseball card collectors than anything else.
There was. And I even talked to Beckett about it before, about the price guides where I didn't have a lot of international cards or other sports. He was like, there's no demand for it in the United States. It's all brand new stuff. I mean, like even Venezuela cards and stuff like that, like those have boomed in the last few years, but going back 10 or 15 years ago, maybe I was younger. I didn't know because my local card shows, but I had no idea about those. And I don't think they were nearly as expensive as they are today.
Yeah.
Then Jason talked about Iron Maiden card, I assume. Very cool. And then no one said the T206 Wagner, overhyped since the 1990s and hailed as the holy grail of cards. I think it just has that story to it. I mean, here's the thing, though. There's less than 100 T206 Honus Wagners, probably between 50 and 75 of those. At least there's true scarcity on that side of things compared to the 52 mantle. Like I could walk into any large vintage card show. I'm guaranteed to see at least one 52 mantle out there, you're not going to always see a Hannes Wagner there. And that's
So
the difference.
why is the T206, why is that one? Because I know that there's also, well, tell me, I guess, there's other obscure sets like cigarette sets and cigar
Yeah,
sets?
there's rarer Hannes Wagner cards. In fact,
So why is that? So then why did that one become so prominent if there's more rare stuff?
Because it's kind of the story of how it got pulled from production. So no one knows for sure the reason why it was. People claim it was because of tobacco, which is a lie because in 1949, Hannes Wagner has a leaf card that has tobacco in his mouth, right? And for some reason, I think that card is kind of undervalued because it like contradicts what everyone thinks about the T206 card. But for whatever reason, it was pulled from production and it's considered one of the big four of the T206 set. So if anyone needs to complete the set, there's 4 cards that you need to complete it. Now, Hannes Wagner is the most expensive. And then you have Eddie Plank, which is number 2, which is the rumor that his plate broke and then they just stopped production of it. There's 2 others as well. They're just not as popular as Plank or Wagner, but that's the reason for Wagner.
Interesting.
And then I saw a Nintendo Power card, and I assume from the magazine. Have you ever seen anything new about these? I think they're from the late 80s. I couldn't tell you anything about Nintendo stuff.
So I have a Nintendo Power like number 3. I got a CGC like a mid grade. I think it's like a 5.0 or something, just because I thought it was cool. It was $20. I wouldn't mind having a number 1 Nintendo Power number 1 graded, but they've shot up in price like everything else.
Yeah, and then Mangini says T206 Wagner is my number 1 dream card. I think it'd be really cool. For me, I want his 1903 card above the T206 just because it's the first set of the early 1900s baseball card wise. I get the Wagner is really, really cool in that set. Probably my second Wagner that I'd want. But again, I can't afford either of them, so I'm not even going to worry about that. And then auto racing, number 1 sport in the world. Agree. UK dealers don't know what they have at times. Joe DiMaggio is one of mine too. Dream card there. That is a cool card too. Although I want a Zenith. And then let's see. All bought basketball cards in the late 80s, but baseball was number 1. What's up, Caleb?
Well, basketball, yeah, I mean, I just know like Steve that was on my live stream last night with Off Centered. He, like when he was a kid, they had 86 Fleer packs in the grocery store. You could get them all day, and he did open those. So I know that. I guess when I'm just thinking back to, and maybe it was just where I was too. I was in Florida, and I just had my local card shop there. The most available packs that I saw were 89. So like when it became more available to me was 89.90 hoops. That David Robinson rookie. There was, I like the design of those. I still like the design.
Funny enough, I have literally David Robinson right over here. I was going through stuff. I was going to send in just to sell and stuff like that. This one, although it's pretty funny, has ink staining on it. So that's,
I guess I was probably too young. Like 88 Fleer, I was 7. So I probably just that was probably my cutoff. Like that's when I got more into it. I was 8, 9, 10. And that's why it was 89.90 hoops was when it started for me.
It's crazy though, like talking to dealers that have been in this forever. They're like, man, I couldn't even get rid of my 86 Fleer back in the day. People didn't even want them. I got rid of them for pennies on the dollar. I wish I kept it all. Like there's so many of those vintage dealers that have those stories. It's incredible.
That's what they're going to be saying about Stranger Things cards. I could have got these all day.
It's insane though, like the scarcity on some stuff though. Like looking back in another 5 or 10 years where things will be at. And then Jason says, hunt for 39 play ball, DiMaggio at the National. You should be able to find one there at least. I have 2 more rare Wagner cards, but Tito 6 is still my one. I mean, that's like the face of pre-war cards in this hobby. That and the lesser known Just So Cy Young, if that ever shows up. I think there's 1 graded. That would be a multi-million card. Cy Young's interesting. I don't know if you know a lot of his cards, Dustin, but his T206, T205, like those are at the very end of his career because he started playing in the 1800s. His first card is a Just So from 1893. I think that's his only 1800s card, except for like there's a few like larger cabinet type cards, but just doesn't have a lot out there. And then T206 super popular. Then when flipping in or buying cards, quantity, 49 Leaf Wagner. And then John D. Wagner told the story where he asked Hannes Wagner 1942, and the story went from there. Thankful that you guys are pronouncing Hannes correctly. I cringe when I hear Honus. And then It was pulled because of tobacco. Even though Wagner used it, he didn't want to promote it to kids. That's why all his cards were candy cards. Okay, so I had it wrong with that. I just don't think it's so funny, though, his 49 Leaf. It's so contradictory. He didn't want it towards kids, but his 49 Leaf has that huge tobacco wad in his mouth. It's interesting. I get it, though. Here's name. Cool. You have any other cards to show? If not, we can end it here. I think it's a good spot.
I mean, I've got other stuff, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I don't have any other like vintage stuff nearby. That would be, I feel like I don't have anything that the crowd is going to be excited about.
That's all right. Well, I appreciate you jumping on the show. Where can people find you at besides YouTube?
On Instagram, I'm at Sports Card Dad, and then I'm on Twitter, the Sports Card Dad.
Awesome. And guys, make sure to give him a subscribe and also check out Off Center from last night. We talked like 90 minutes.
That was fun.
It was really, I couldn't believe how fast the time went.
Yeah, I learned a lot. That was really good. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I highly recommend you guys watch that episode. It was a great podcast. Anyways, we're going to be back next week, anywhere from 7 to 8. We're going to be talking about cricket cards. So whole nother conversation. You're going to learn a lot because super niche. There's not a ton of collectors that are talking about it or sharing their knowledge. It's always cool to see brand new sets, brand new players that you're not familiar with. Anyways, I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Yo.